My name is Dr. Stephen Jones. As an organizational psychologist and executive coach, I love to study what allows people to bring out the best in themselves and others. So join me as I welcome top leaders to uncover the future of leadership. Welcome to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast, where top leaders reveal insights earned, wisdom gained, and transformational moments that have defined and redefined their leadership. I'm your host, Dr. Stephen Jones, and today's guest is a community advocate with demonstrated results as a change agent, an engaging leader and mentor, skilled at cultivating high-performing teams, establishing community partnerships, and transforming culture. The amazing Nancy Maldonado.
Have you do my intro everywhere I
go.
Oh,
there you go. There you go. You got it. In this episode, Nancy and I will strive to uncover a few of the secrets of the future of effective leadership. Thank you, Nancy, for coming on to the LeaderSHYFT Secret Podcast. We are honored to have you as a guest.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Let me tell you a little bit more about our guest that's with us today. Nancy was born and raised in Bishop, California by parents who were immigrants from Mexico. I understand your dad was a farm worker, your mother a school bus driver.
Yep.
Right. Nancy is the inaugural Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Rady Children's Health, where she provides strategic direction and institutional vision, advancing belonging and patient-centered care across the health system. Nancy is an engaging leader and mentor, skilled at cultivating high-performing teams, establishing community partnerships, and, as I mentioned earlier, transforming culture. Prior to Rady, Nancy served as the CEO of Chicano Federation, a social services and advocacy organization that has been serving the community for over 50 years. She's also has served as the Director of Community Health for the American Heart Association and American Stroke Association. Previously, Nancy has owned and operated her own business where she developed and implemented wellness programs for multiple corporations. She's been honored with the City of San Diego's proclamation of, drumroll please, Nancy Maldonado Day. Nancy has been featured on the cover of San Diego Magazine as an inspirational woman and was also named as Businesswoman of the Year by the San Diego Business Journal. Most recently, Nancy has become a part of the Reality Changers and Lead San Diego Board of Directors. However, I know what is very important to Nancy, at least one of the things that's very important to her is Nancy is a dedicated mother committed to expose her son Dominic to different cultures, languages, identities, and experiences. She has recently completed her coursework on her academic journey to achieve her Ph.D. in leadership studies at University of San Diego. So we have someone here who studies leadership. Y'all, we're going to have a good conversation. She also teaches in the Masters in Leadership program, teaching students at the master's level on how to develop people and teams. All right, this is our guest today, Nancy Maldonado. Let's start off, Nancy, with talk a little bit about what is your passion for leadership and making an impact?
When I think about where my passion for leadership comes from, it really does come from my upbringing, right? So I'm the daughter of immigrant parents who literally came to this country with nothing. And I saw the things that they went through and the things that they struggled with, and really all in the vein of trying to create a better life for me and my brothers. So I've always felt like I carry with me a responsibility to make that road just a little bit easier for someone else. And if I can help eliminate some of those barriers that I watched my parents face, then that's a responsibility that I hold, and I want to pay that forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Uh-oh.
What fuels you, Nancy?
I think it's what you said. It's being a mom. That's something that when I think of something that has kind of changed the trajectory of my life, it's becoming a mom, because now it's not about the accolades and the awards. I have these two big brown eyes that look up to me and think the world of me, and I need to be the person that he believes I am.
Ah, very good, very good. The person that he believes you are.
Yes.
So let's talk about how it's important for folks in leadership roles, right? Kind of drawing that parallel, to be the type of leader that the people that they lead believe them to be. What would you say are 2 to 3 things that are important for people in leadership roles? And I intentionally frame it that way, right?
Yes.
That becomes important for them to kind of step up into that role.
I think a big part of that is knowing your own values and never compromising those values, and being authentic. And there's a lot of times where I think traditional leadership models have told us that we have to know all the answers. And people appreciate vulnerability and the ability to say, I don't know. Let's figure this out together. And I think that for me, at least, leading with integrity is something that is really important. And I think, and perhaps it's the type of of roles that I have, but when I think of the leaders that I look up to, and the leader that I aspire to be, integrity is at the core of that.
Got it. What does that integrity look like?
I think it's always putting people first, and being the person in the room that is always centering people over anything else, over politics, over any bureaucracy, that's willing to compromise your own status and your own privilege if it means doing the right thing and putting your people first.
Got it. When I hear you say putting your people first, I think about, right next to that, keeping your ego in check.
Yes.
Talk about the battle between those two.
Yeah. I think that comes with kind of introspection and knowing yourself. But if I could say, because often people ask me, like, how has my leadership changed? And I would go back to that I think I'm in a place now where I can lead with more intention and care and less ego. And that's less about what I need. And, again, going back to those accolades and that prestige, that's ego. But when you lead from a place of centering people, none of that matters. It's about, how are you making your people feel? How are you supporting them? How are they walking out at the end of the day? And are you able to see that when someone tells you they're fine, are you able to see that there's some hurt behind their eyes? Yeah. And are you able to catch that even when you have a million things going on and you have deadlines and you have things to do, and taking that moment to pause and say, and are you really fine? Yeah. What can I do? How can I support you?
Very good. Very good. Talk about balancing time and priorities around that, right? Because we hear leaders so often saying, I'm busy, I'm focused on the strategic portion and lens, right, and work. Talk a little bit about that balance around time versus time for people.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot, right? Especially in healthcare. It's such a fast-moving industry, and there's so much to do, and yet none of it gets done without your people. And so it's really just encouraging people to take a step back, to really focus on, how can I better develop my skills? What is the language that I need? What are the skill sets that I need to be a better leader? And I find that that when we're able just to do a little bit at a time and it's valuable, then people are willing to invest more and more and more. But I think it's being really intentional about understanding, where are my gaps as a leader and where do I need to develop, because we all need to develop. None of us are ever done. There's no checkbox. There's no finish line in terms of developing ourselves as people, but also developing ourselves as leaders and really defining what that means. Right. And I think that's that's been a really fun journey, is to think about what I used to think leadership means versus what I think it means now.
Okay. Let's dive into that a little bit. What are one or two examples of what you used to think leadership was compared to what you think it is now? Give us a couple
I
examples.
thought leadership was a title.
Okay.
Right? And it was something that you were given. And now I think it's something that you claim, and it's a relationship. It's a process. Leadership is about being in relationship with people. And so when I hear people say, oh, it's not personal, I disagree. Okay. Leadership, to me, leadership is extremely personal, because it's about being in relationship with people and about how you interact with them and how you grow with them. And oftentimes, as you know, we're going to be with people that we might not necessarily agree with or share the same values with. And how do you still work with that person? How do you still connect with them? How do you still work to understand them? And it can be hard, but that to me is what leadership is now. It's less about being able to influence and more about being able to listen and learn how to influence and how to,
And how to be influenced as well,
absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Well, that's part of the listening part, right? It's really, it goes back to that relationship.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about the listening piece, right? Because what is it? You're listening, but you're not really hearing me. Talk about that challenge for folks in leadership roles around the listening and really the hearing.
Oh, it is a challenge, especially when you know, and again, not leaders have a lot of responsibility, and especially, you know, when you work in a fast moving industry and you have to make really quick decisions. And in our industry, there are decisions that have life or death impact. And yet our people are so brilliant, and they care, and they just want to be heard and listened to, and know that they can make a difference in the decisions that are being made, decisions that are going to influence and impact them. And so it's really about coming together and saying, let's hear you out. What are your ideas? How is this impacting you? And how can we do this differently? How can we do it better? And we've done that at Rady Children's. And the way that people respond to that has been really, it really shows us that we're doing things in the right way by just taking a step back and listening to our folks. And they come to the table, and they really are. They're brilliant. And people have really great ideas because they're the folks that are doing the work. And so taking the time to pause and just hear them out. And again, it can be hard because people are busy. And yet I think that's such a powerful aspect of leadership.
Yeah, so good. So good. Where have you seen leaders get it wrong?
Oh. I mean, when I've gotten it wrong. I've gotten it wrong so many times. I've made so many mistakes. And thinking back to, you know, when I was early in my career, and I had leadership roles from pretty early on, I led in the way that I had been led. Because that's what I thought leadership was. So I got it wrong all the time. And I made a lot of mistakes. And I caused a lot of harm in my leadership because I didn't know any better. And so I think that we get it wrong by thinking that we need to lead the way that we've been led versus really digging deep and understanding what is my leadership style, what are my values, what is my philosophy around leadership, and discovering that.
That's so good. I'm thinking about a conversation I think we had a little bit earlier, you and I, about this idea of sometimes parents parent the way they wish they would have been parented. And I'm thinking about that around leaders lead, to building your point, sometimes the way they wish they would have been led or the way they were led, to your point. Talk a little bit about how do you figure that out, right? How do you sort through that?
Yeah, I think it's similar to parenting, right? I think what we said is the kind of complicated part of parenting is that you're reparenting yourself.
Yes.
And I think the same applies to leadership, is that you're re-leading yourself and you're having to unlearn things in the process as you're trying to discover what your style is. And I think it's nuanced, right? Because yes, there is a part of that that's very powerful and be the parent that you needed or be the leader that you needed. But most importantly, like, not to lose sight of, be the parent that that child needs. Be the leader that that person sitting in front of you needs. Because it's different. It's different than what I needed versus what my son needs.
Yeah. So good. It's a leadership secret that's coming to mind for me is the need for leaders to shift from I to we and they, right?
Yes.
Not what I need, but what this person needs or what this organization needs or what this team needs versus what I need or needed.
Yes. And I think the tricky part is staying true to your values as a leader and doing that, right? And being the person, like the leader that person needs or that the organization needs, and kind of knowing what that looks like for you as a leader.
How do you do that?
I think it really is about having a really good understanding of what is important to me and where's my line of the things that I can't compromise. Right, in terms of my integrity and my ethics. And yes, you know, one of the things that I do in any role, not just in my current role, is I check in with myself and ask myself, do I still believe that I am the best person for this role in terms of my impact, in terms of my own personal values, in terms of what the organization needs, in terms of what this team needs. And I have to definitively be able to say yes to all of those things. And the minute I can't say that, then that's when I know that that's probably not the role for me anymore. But I have to believe that I am the best person for that role.
Got it. So it's almost like an ongoing self-appraisal, if you will, right? Like in 360s, we oftentimes start with a self-appraisal and then get feedback from others. And so that idea of honestly asking yourself and answering that question. Yeah?
Absolutely. I think for me, it borders on, I'm always on the line of compassion and accountability.
Okay.
And holding the line on those two.
Okay.
And sometimes, honestly, I feel like I'm failing at both, right? But making sure that I'm compassionate and I'm holding people accountable. And what does that look like?
Yeah. Very good. Very good. If I can add, tell me if I'm tracking. Compassion, accountability. And then I'm thinking in between there is support and growth and development, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Talk about that.
Because that's how you hold people accountable, right? Is you're very clear on what your expectations are. You're very clear on what that person needs from you as a leader. Okay. Or maybe from other people, you know, just how you can support them and making sure that that you can hold them accountable to the goals that you both set.
Yes.
And it's also really fun, right? Because you get to see people grow like right before your eyes. And I'm so lucky, especially in the role that I'm in now, that we get to help people develop the leaders that they've always been, but really get to see them shine. And it's a pretty rewarding feeling when you see that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, I'm thinking about, talk a little bit about what are some of the bad advice you've seen people get about leadership, like when they're in that role. What do you think are some things that people are told to do that you'd be like, don't do that?
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think back to some of the advice I got when I was younger, right? Like, I think, but going back to what I said earlier, leadership is so personal. And so to, you know, this idea of, you know, people need to leave their personal lives at the door. How many times have we heard that? You know, that's bad advice. Yes. People cannot leave who they are at the door, and nor should we expect them to. And nor should we expect our leaders to either, right? So bringing that to to wherever you are, whether
Yes.
it's work or wherever it is that you have this like leadership presence or role, bring it, because
Yeah.
that's what makes you unique. That's what makes you your authentic self, but also knowing how to create a space where other people can bring that too.
Nice.
So I think that's bad advice.
Okay. Got one.
Gosh, I think this idea that so I really dislike the idea of hierarchical leadership.
Okay.
This idea that leadership can't be shared.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's bad advice,
Yeah.
and it's just a bad model.
What do you think makes it bad?
And then I think when you get kind of bottleneck decision making,
Okay.
and it leadership has this ability to really empower people or really disenfranchise them. And I think that a more hierarchical structure really disenfranchises a lot of people. And everybody is brilliant. Everybody brings some uniqueness and some gifts. And so this idea that not everyone is a leader, that's bad advice.
Okay.
Everyone is a leader,
Very
and
good.
everyone has leadership skills and abilities.
Yeah.
The idea of shared leadership and bringing that into organizations, and that is something that I'm really passionate about. And I think we've all got bad advice when we were told that that's not possible, or that's not what leadership looks like.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot about, as you're talking, I'm thinking about how, as you said, the hierarchy disenfranchises.
Mm-hmm.
The hierarchy also oftentimes gets substituted for the role and responsibility, right? Like the role and responsibility does not equal hierarchy.
Right.
The hierarchy oftentimes equals versions of saying who gets listened to versus your shared leadership saying we all get listened to.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes. Not just who has a voice, but whose opinion matters.
Yes.
And who has the ability to bring unique, information and make these great decisions. I think that's where it gets really, it disenfranchises people, is that it silences them.
Got it.
And it encourages people to shrink into a role and into a position versus the opposite.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about then, how does, and I'm thinking about that mid-career or frontline leader. Let's start there for a little bit. What are some of the things that leaders can do to empower and embolden the voices of folks instead of silence and disenfranchise? What would that look like?
Ask them.
What a concept. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, but also I think it is particularly when making decisions, right? Get those different voices at the table. But there's a lot of research that'll show us that even just having a leadership title, people behave differently. Right? And so I think about this, especially with children, is like, tell them they are leaders. Point out the leadership capabilities in each and everybody. And so same thing with like a team, right? Point out that their leadership skills and their abilities, and help them see that in themselves if they don't already. And then really support that. And the same goes for, we talk about parenting a lot, and how I was never told I was a leader when I was a child. And it's not because I didn't have parents who loved me.
Right.
It's because that wasn't our language.
That's right.
Right? And so the more that we can do that, not just with children, but with people who are early on in their career, how different would that be, and how they see themselves and how they show up and how they speak up at work and how they're involved in decision making and how they say yes to opportunities.
Yes. Very good. And I'm thinking about, to your point, the words and the actions, right? So even if I don't hear the word "you're a leader," for someone to ask, what's my opinion? What do I think? Versus adults are talking now.
Right.
Right. Like, yeah.
I mean, this happened the other night, right? When my son had a conflict, and I knew what I wanted him to do, but I said, you decide.
Yes.
You make the decision. And I totally disagreed with the decision that he made, but he'll never know that because I needed to empower him to make that decision and to own it. And he did. He had a great time.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Let's talk about conflict and the need for, well, how does a leader set up an environment that supports healthy conflict?
And this is the work I do. I think so a lot of it is changing the way we view conflict and that it's not negative. It doesn't have to be negative. Conflict and a difference of opinions, a difference of perspectives, a difference in views, that can lead to innovation and creativity. But I think we have this idea that conflict is negative. It's all bad. And I disagree.
Okay.
There's some more bad advice.
Very good. Very good.
And so how do we harness that energy of these different perspectives and use that in a way that's productive? And that's really a lot around the work that I do in helping to have that dialogue and extract those ideas, right? To separate the person from the behavior or the conflict and bring forward the ideas. And how do you affirm an idea when you don't necessarily believe in the behavior or share the same values, right? It's a skill. It's a skill that we don't always teach people, that we don't learn unless we're really intentional to go out and seek out how to do that. So I think conflict is you need it. You need it. You need that tension for great ideas to emerge. You need it for innovative ideas to come forward. And you need it to have a really strong team that's going to bring all those different perspectives.
Okay. Got it. So now let's go to the senior leader, executive leader. Okay. What would you say, and let's talk about it as what are additional skills, are different skills necessary when leaders go from mid-manager to executive or C-suite leadership roles? What are one or two to three skills, behaviors, mindsets that are important at that executive level?
I think a lot of times we don't learn systems and how systems are structured and how to function within a system. And that can be nuanced, right? Depending on the organization, depending on the system that we're talking about. But no one ever really sits us down to explain how you navigate within a system and how your leadership has to change from middle manager to maybe a smaller team to higher visibility, higher impact, higher responsibility, because your decisions have a lot of impact and how to navigate that. So I think that systems level thinking and that experience is something that making that jump, folks really need to understand. And it's not always easy. I say that, but it's not necessarily easy.
Right.
I think, for me, it's a little bit different in that I'm a woman and that I'm a woman of color. And so understanding those dynamics, that matters. And how the things that other people might be able to say and the way in which they might be able to navigate the room that I have to do differently. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. But that's important to understand. And we don't always talk about that either.
Now we're going to talk about it. Okay. Let's talk about it. And I'm thinking about it around, let's uncover for the folks for whom this is invisible to, some of what is very visible to many, right? So can you help us with an example or two of what are some of those dynamics that you and other women of color find yourselves navigating that other folks may not even be aware of?
You have to be really intentional about the way in which you're showing up.
Okay.
Because if you come, out of the gate and you're, excited and you're making, suggestions and decisions, that's not always viewed as you're just excited and passionate about your role, right? That can sometimes be viewed as, you're, here we go with all the tropes. You're aggressive. You're too assertive. That you're not staying, quote unquote, staying in your lane.
Yes.
And it's really a delicate balance that you have to play in terms of like how much you show up, how much you speak up, when to speak up, when not to speak up. And again, like I think of when I was early on making that jump, I didn't have anyone to tell me, kind of guide me through that. And so you make mistakes and you end up, maybe stepping on toes or, saying things that you maybe could have said differently. But it's your tone.
Yeah.
It's, the way in your body language, all of those things are viewed differently. And it's just understanding that. It is really being thoughtful about knowing what that looks like and what that means.
Talk a little bit about the energy that it takes. Okay, she just did. You heard that song? Right. But you talked about values earlier. Then you're navigating your authentic self. You're navigating wanting to be vulnerable as a leader. And then you're navigating, I'm going to say it this way, the myth, lies, and stereotypes that other folks are reacting and responding to, right?
Yes.
How do you manage that? How much energy has that taken for you and other women of color that you've spoken to about
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I have to think about how I'm dressed, depending on where I'm going, how I walk into the room. Am I smiling? What's my tone? Did I say hi? Right? All of these different things that maybe other people wouldn't necessarily even give a second thought. We have to, I'll say I have to think about all of that. And it's exhausting. And I think over time, right? And again, we're like a new leader. Over time, you get better at kind of just knowing that that's all part of it. But when I had to think about all of those things individually, I mean, there's hardly anything left to then pour into your leadership and into the role that you have.
Right.
Because you're so busy giving all of that so much attention and so much thought.
Yeah. And I want to frame what you're saying as we are not talking about this as an excuse. We're not talking about this as, oh, that's what everybody has to deal with. We're, again, uncovering and making the invisible visible.
Yes.
Right? And so that's the frame that I want to put around what you just said, because I can imagine some people hearing that and go, oh, I have to do that, and I have to do that. What would you say people oftentimes miss when they hear what you just said?
I think what they miss is that all of this has to be at the same time that I'm trying to also lead a team, lead an organization, lead other executives, right? So that I'm really thinking about my leadership, my skills, what that looks like, the language that I'm using, and then I have to do all of this on top of it. And so it's just a lot, and it can be really heavy. And I certainly am not the only person, and I'm certainly not speaking for everyone. But I do know that I talk to a lot of other women who share that same sentiment, and that it is just an additional layer of how we need to be mindful of how we're showing up.
And I'm thinking about the idea of perfection, and sometimes the expectation of perfection from others, as well as sometimes ourselves, as you're navigating all of that.
And understanding that there's different expectations of different people. So perfection and what someone expects from me looks different than what perfection or what the expectations for someone else.
Yeah.
And again, I think part of really coming into your own and developing your leadership is understanding that perfection is, well, for me, it was understanding perfection is not the goal.
That's right.
Right? It's showing up with clarity, with intention, with purpose, that I can be there in the spirit of making connection and building relationships. And that at the same time, I don't ever have to compromise my values and my integrity. And that's what makes me the leader that I want to be and will continue to aspire to be.
Yeah. Confidence. And we've heard a lot of people talk about this imposter syndrome thing. Mixed in with all we've just talked about. How does that fit into the algorithm of leadership?
Well, I'll just say I don't believe in imposter syndrome.
Okay.
I believe in imposter systems.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, hold on. Y'all heard that? She just dropped a gem, y'all. Looking at the imposter systems instead of imposter syndrome. Say some more about what you mean.
When we talk about imposter syndrome, we're putting the onus on the individual. And there are systems built. Particularly, I'll talk about, as my perspective as a woman and a woman of color, there are systems that were built so that I would never feel empowered, so that I do not see myself in those leadership roles, so that there are lots of barriers for me to thrive and succeed within these systems. That's not a me thing. That's a systemic thing. And so when we send this message that, oh, you have imposter syndrome, no, you're working in imposter systems. And we need to change that. That's what we need to change. We don't need to change, and again, I'll talk about these young leaders or these young women. It's not them that we need to change. We need to dismantle these systems that continue to oppress people.
Yeah, well, it's so good, right? Because the systems look different at the entry leadership level than they do at the mid-manager level, than they do at the executive level.
Absolutely.
And yet those systems are at all three of those levels, right? And so I'm thinking about a leader who came up to me during a break and said to me, she said, I'm an executive and I've reached the executive level. This was in an automotive company. And she said, and I have been in the closet my entire career in order to achieve the executive level. And she goes, and so now I'm thinking about coming out in my organization. She goes, but I'm still concerned about my career because, one, I'm not done yet, but I want to be a role model for other people, right, in my organization. But I sit in some of these meetings and I see a different code of heterosexism and homophobia that I'm challenged to respond to and navigate. So to your point, those systems look different and live and breathe, right, at various levels of organizations.
Yeah, and so when we talk about, when we tell people, oh, it's imposter syndrome, but yet I have this all the way throughout my career, no matter what I've accomplished, no matter what levels I've reached. Is that really a syndrome or is it a system?
Yeah. Leadership secret. Leaders dismantle the imposter systems, but first they have to look for and recognize those systems at play.
Absolutely.
That's a skill.
It is a skill. And I'll say it takes a very intentional leader not to get caught up in that system. Right? Because to your point, the leader that you were just talking about, you have to decide at some point, disruption and dismantling systems is not going to be viewed upon favorably. And what is the impact that you want to make? And what is the leadership impact that you want to have?
Yeah. And it becomes important to not blame the victim, not, which is part of what I hear you saying
Yes.
the imposter syndrome does, is it puts the target and the focus on the recipient
Yes.
of the system versus looking at the system itself.
Right. If you just were more confident, if you just were
Yes.
this, if you did this, then this wouldn't be a problem.
That's
That's
right.
just not true.
That's right. And oftentimes, folks will point to someone who has chosen to either collude or to create a coping strategy,
Yes.
right, that keeps the system and people in positions of power in those systems comfortable
Yes.
to where they don't have to change.
Right.
The person themselves is doing the changing.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And there'll always be someone that they can point to.
Yes.
Right? That said, well, this person's fine here. This person's succeeding here. This person's thriving here.
Mm-hmm.
So it must be you.
Yes.
And it's our ability to push back and say, well, no, this is the system. And to your point, like that to me is leadership, is pushing back against those systems.
Yeah. And for leaders to also, I'm thinking about the theme of what's bad advice, right? That leaders have gotten, right? I think an example of that bad advice is leaders who will say, well, there are 5 African Americans in the room. Those 3 are not upset. So why is this person getting upset? They must be the problem, or they must be angry.
Right.
Expecting that all 5 individuals are going to have the same response. Otherwise, any of those individuals' response is invalidated.
Right. We see that time and time again. And that's how these systems get perpetuated and get upheld. And it's not those individuals' fault. They either have developed a coping mechanism, or maybe they are okay with the way things are.
That's right.
But just because somebody isn't doesn't make them the problem.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point, bad advice.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. What is, when you think about the leading in a pre-COVID world versus leading in a post-COVID world, what do you think are some important shifts and lessons that leaders could benefit from?
I've seen, especially in the teams that I've led, is that the priorities have really shifted. And people value their time differently. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so I think that it's really understanding, again, it's being in relationship with the people that you're leading and that you're working with, and understanding what's important to them. And it feels like it has shifted. Okay. It feels like it's different. I know for me, it certainly shifted. Whereas I spend a lot more time at home because that I value that time. That's really precious time. But I think it's really understanding what people's priorities are and where their values lie, and that's going to look different for everyone. And I think that's also the hardest part of leadership, is that you're not leading one team where everybody's the same. At least I hope you're not. And if you are, let's talk.
Right. Absolutely.
But that everyone is so different, and taking the time to understand them and understand what's important to them is an investment. But there is a huge return on that investment.
That's good. That's real good. Real good. What would you say is Nancy Maldonado's superpower?
Leadership superpower? Or just
Yeah.
superpower?
Leadership superpower. I know of the superpowers you have many, but let's focus in on leadership. I know there are many there too. Yes.
I care so deeply about the people that I get the privilege to lead, that are on my team. Almost like with a ferocity. And I think, I care about them as people and about developing them and helping them reach their potential. And if I can play a small part in that, that is such a huge responsibility that I take so seriously. And I will do anything for people who I work with and who I lead. And when I think about it, actually, I have pockets of friends from every place that I've worked. And they were all people who used to report to me and who have now become more than just friends. They're family to me. And I think it's because of that foundational, like, just genuine care that I had for them when we were working together. And even, now that I think about it, one of my longest friends, I mean, we've been friends for over 2 decades. I met her when I was her kickboxing instructor.
Nancy Maldonado, at one point in time, was a kickboxing instructor, ladies and gentlemen. Just noting. You were saying.
Yes. And she came to mind because I just saw her. And again, it's been over 2 decades. But even in that role, right, like, I cared so much. And now she is literally like family to me.
Very good. Very good. Let's stay with that kickboxing instructor. You have lived many leadership lives, clearly, Nancy. What transfers as you think about the teaching that you did with kickboxing to the idea of teaching leaders how to lead?
Again, I think it's caring for people. It's understanding what it is that they want to accomplish. Right? Because I could want them to accomplish things, but if that's not what they want, helping them to see their potential and helping them to develop into that and reach their full potential, I think that transfers over. And I think it's, I think about even my time growing up on the farm. So my family worked this farm because we were, middle class working family, and we each had a role in how we worked at that farm. So I was young, maybe 5 years old, and my family would wake up before dawn and they'd go out. I mean, before the sun even came up, right? That's when it started. And they would be out there working different places on the farm. And my role, even at that young age, was to wake up, make lunch for everybody, pack it up individually, and take my raggedy little bike and ride out to them and deliver their lunch. And sometimes this was miles apart, right? But I think about those types of things, and it's like anticipating needs and caring for people and making sure that their needs are met so that they can contribute to the whole. And I think those are the things that I've carried with me, and why, like, the foundation of my leadership is relational, and it's a process. It's something you do with people, not for people or to people.
Very good. Very good. I'm thinking about that's powerful. That's really powerful. Because it says, to your point, everybody has a role, right? And looking at the different capabilities, right? Development stages, right? Of various members of the team, of the family, of the community, everyone can contribute, which sounds like it goes back to your shared leadership model.
Yes. And no one role is more important than the other, because my little peanut butter and jelly sandwich helped to enable the work to continue.
Yes. No small part.
No.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That is phenomenal. I'm thinking 2 things: toxic work culture and rewarding mediocrity. Yeah.
How much time do we have?
Which one do you want to take on first?
Rewarding mediocrity.
Okay, let's go there.
It's something that we see in all the different systems, and it's interesting how people get into these roles, into these leadership roles, and often that's a lot of the work that I've done, is encountering leaders who maybe were great individual contributors and all of a sudden are in a leadership role.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I was one of those people, right? I didn't get the skills and the training, and I wasn't equipped to lead other people. And so that's something that I'm really particularly passionate about. And hopefully not continuing to reward that mediocrity, but helping them also, right? Because it's not people's fault that they get put into these roles, but helping them to develop and hopefully to become leaders that can be impactful and not cause harm.
So good. Because my mind goes to accountability, performance, mediocrity or exceeding. But it also starts with setting clear expectations, which is a skill, right? That some folks will, one, have not developed, or two, do not communicate what the expectations are for someone to know whether their performance is mediocre or exceeding expectations, right? And so it's we as leaders have to learn the skill of setting clear expectations. Is that fair?
It is fair. And I think it goes back to your comment around kind of conflict and tension, is when someone is not performing, is being okay with that tension.
That's right.
Because you are causing harm if you're not holding that person accountable and being honest with them. And that's hard. It's hard to do. And yet I think that is one of the most undervalued leadership skills, is really holding people accountable.
And setting those clear expectations to hold people accountable.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
We worked with a client where we helped them develop skills for holding the difficult performance coaching conversation. And we would talk about the idea that it's time for the leaders to give people their full-time jobs back. Because they had done workarounds, taken work off the person's plate, not giving them any performance feedback. So the person's just going, hey, life is good. Right. I'm doing half the work and still getting my full paycheck. Right? And getting the performance reviews that say I'm doing a great job, which was the conflict part, right? That was being avoided. Yeah.
And then again, going back to our earlier point, again, research will show that women of color, this is more harshly done and more often done to women and women of color, right? And that you take things away, but you don't always have the conversation with them. You don't always set those clear expectations. And that, again, going back to that it's just different.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, then the label will be, this person's not a good fit.
Right.
As opposed to the imposter system.
Yes. That
is at play.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, Nancy Maldonado.
All right. And actually, we've tried to shift the language away from culture fit in anything that we do. Is it a culture stretch? Is it a culture add? Because if it's not either of those two things, then let's not move forward with that. Let's bring in people who are going to stretch us.
Yes.
Let's bring in someone who's going to add to this team and move away from that fit mentality.
Yeah, someone is going to reflect who we are and keep us comfortable in the place that we're in.
Absolutely. And that's also a detriment to leaders, because I want someone who's going to stretch me and help me grow and challenge me in a healthy way.
Yeah. I heard that healthy way. Gotcha. Well, and to your point, many people define that healthy way as is not going to cause me to have to engage in more conflict, is not going to disagree with me or disagree with me in a way that I feel comfortable being disagreed with, right?
Yes.
I'm just thinking about all of these coded words that we use to support the mediocrity and status quo. Yeah.
It's baked in. Into these systems.
Absolutely. It's systematic, y'all. It's systemic. It's systemic. That's awesome. What do you think and hope Nancy, is one or two things that folks watching this podcast take away, walk away with?
I think, when we're talking about leadership, I hope that people walk away with understanding that it's not always about visibility. Mm-hmm. It's not always loud. Mm-hmm. It's not about the accolades and the awards. It's about how you make people feel. And it's about holding true to your values and to your integrity. And I think for me, something that guides me is that leaders will make the decisions and be willing to lose status, to be willing to lose privilege, but won't be willing to compromise their values. And I hope that if anyone out there is kind of struggling with where's the line, where do I draw that line, you can hold that line and be your authentic self and really fully own your leadership, and that you don't have to compromise any of that.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I'm thinking about self-confidence in terms of not tapping out of leadership or self-selecting out of leadership opportunities. Talk a little bit about those folks who may be questioning whether they are ready or the right person. You mentioned that's a question you ask yourself. We know there are some people who, even when they are the right person, will not feel like they are the right person. How do you manage and balance that?
I think it's really thinking back to what you've been told, what you've learned that leadership is, and really redefining that for yourself. Yeah. And unlearning these messages that we've been given, unlearning these things that we've been taught about what quote unquote leadership looks like. And I think when folks, maybe some people aren't ready, maybe that is true, but I know a lot of the people that I've come across, that I've talked to, that have, we've had that conversation around am I ready? It's tapping into to ask them what does leadership mean to you? What does that look like to you? And it's not what we've been told or what we've seen, but how do you redefine that for yourself? And how can you reimagine it of what it could look like? And I think when folks really tap into that, you'll find that we all have we're all leaders in our own right. Is how do you bring that to the forefront? How do you really make that shine? What does that look like? And what do you need to tap into that?
That's so good. That's so good. I remember there was some research that I was reading that talked about around gender bias and gender differences, that men, according to this study, raise their hands when they're about 50% prepared or qualified, versus, according to this research, women wait till they're 70, 80, 90% prepared and sometimes still don't feel prepared enough. And so that idea of, am I ready for this next role, just thinking quickly about a client that I was working with in the biotech industry, where their version of creating their talent pipeline was the idea of, when people are ready, they will raise their hand. And then we did some work with them and, shared some of this stuff, and they put a strategy together that says, we're going to start asking our senior and executive leaders to start tapping people on the shoulder that they thought were ready, right? Because if they were waiting for the person to raise their hand, and that gender difference was playing out.
Yeah.
Right. And what's your thought on that dynamic?
I would even say take it a step further and ask the people on the front lines who they view as a leader, right? Because sometimes it's these informal leaders that are really making a difference and helping people and leading, yet no one would ever think of them. And so asking people who they view as as a
Yes,
leader within their
yes,
organization.
yeah,
Right? Versus asking the leaders
yeah.
to see, because they have a different perspective
So
and they're going
good.
to have a different view.
Yeah.
So I would advocate for going to the folks and saying, who do you view as a leader
Yeah,
in
very
this
good.
organization?
That's so awesome. So awesome. It is clear that Nancy and I could continue to focus on, unpack, talk about the shifts in the effectiveness of leadership for hours. But our time has come to an end. Nancy, it has been a pleasure, absolute pleasure, speaking with you, taking some deep dives into and learning from your experiences, your background. Thank you very much for being a guest.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you all for continuing to stay engaged and tuned into this podcast episode of the LeaderSHYFT Secret. We are going to ask you to subscribe, like, and share our YouTube channel, and come back again to watch the next episode of the LeaderSHYFT Secret podcast. Thanks for being here. We'll see you soon.